Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today we're going to be doing some Lightsworn Shaddoll test hands. I'm really excited to do this one because this was actually suggested to me by one of my patrons, Tyler. And Tyler wanted to see a deck that you can make use of the creator monsters. And I figured what better way to use the creator monsters than in a chaos deck like Lightsworn Shaddoll. So, without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can come part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards like getting your name searched every single video, getting a signed cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month you're a patron along with test hands. And definitely give Tyler some love down in the comments down below for suggesting such an awesome deck. So let's get straight on into this. So this is a really interesting deck because this is actually a 60 card variant of Lightsworn Shaddoll, which is a very awesome chaos deck that makes use of both the dark aspects of Shaddoll and the light aspects of Lightsworn while mixing in chaos monsters like Chaos Dragon Levinair and cards like the Chaos Creator and even the Dark Creator in this particular build. So let's go ahead and shuffle up the deck and do a quick pile shuffle and see what we can do. Because this deck is a very interesting 60 card deck, we are going to get all sorts of crazy hands, but what we're really looking for in our opening hand is two monsters that we can summon to the field that are level 4, or a fusion spell plus a Shaddoll and a light monster to go in a construct. That's usually the main plays that you're looking for, and depending on the situation, the lovely thing about this deck is that depending on the situation, you're going to be able to go into all sorts of different plays, and this deck goes very well into the grind game because as the game goes on, we fill up the graveyard and can summon out more and more chaos monsters to our side of the field, which is extremely helpful for a deck like this. So let's go ahead, and now that we're done with the pile shuffle, we're going to give the deck a quick shuffle and a cut, and we're going to see what we can do for this particular test hand. And like I said guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and definitely hit the bell. So let's go ahead and give it a quick shuffle, and we're going to give it a quick cut as well, and then we're going to see what we can do. So for our first test hand, we're going to draw into a Shaddoll Fusion, Charge of the Light Brigade, Goblinberg, El Shaddoll Fusion, and a Solar Recharge. This is about as good as a hand can get just about in this deck. Besides getting another boss monster in our hand, this is a great hand. This is an ideal hand for what you're trying to do, because what we're going to do is we're going to immediately activate Charge of the Light Brigade. And we're going to mill a copy of the Shaddoll Incarnation, another Solar Recharge, and a Garroth just to get us a name in the graveyard for our Judgment Dragon that we'll summon later on. So now we're going to add a copy of Raiden, the Lightsworn hand from our deck to our hand. And at this point, I'm probably going to use the copy of Solar Recharge. You don't have to use the copy of Solar Recharge. You could play it safe, and it might be better to play it safe, to be honest with you guys, to normal summon out the copy of Goblinberg at this point and hope for another copy of a Shaddoll or a copy of a Lightsworn monster. So at this point, I'm going to normal summon out my copy of my Goblinberg, which is going to switch itself to defense position. And then I'm going to normal summon out my copy of my Raiden, or special summon it out with the effect of my Goblinberg. And then I'm going to use the effect of the Raiden to mill the top two cards of my deck. So I'm going to mill the top two, and I'm going to get a copy of Wolf, and I'm going to send a copy of Chaos Dragon Levinair to the graveyard. If you guys are unfamiliar with what Wolf does, if it's sent from the deck to the graveyard, you can instantly special summon it to your side of the field. So at this point, you have two different plays that you can go for, but since I have two level 4 monsters on the field, I'm going to go for the really insane play, and I'm going to go ahead and synchro these two together because this is a tuner and this is a non-tuner. You can immediately synchro those two monsters together to go into a really awesome boss monster in the form of the Chaos Ruler, the Chasmatic Magical Dragon. This card is a really amazing card, and what it does is you reveal the top 5 cards of your deck, and once you do, you can add a light or dark monster from your deck to your hand, and then send the rest to the graveyard. So I'm going to actually add the copy of the Judgment Dragon, and really quickly look and see how many names I have in the graveyard. Let's take a quick look at that. We actually have 3 names in the graveyard, so let's go ahead and maybe add that copy of Judgment Dragon, or you can actually add the copy of Lumina if you want to. I would probably add the Lumina because then I can use the Lumina with the Solar Recharge to dig a little bit deeper into the deck, which is going to help out the deck a lot. And this card actually is a really amazing card because as soon as it does this, you're going to get to send those cards to the graveyard, and it's not cost to send them to the graveyard. So I'm going to go ahead and special summon the Falco and face down the Finch, and the copy of the Windy will let me special summon out another Shaddoll monster because they were sent from the deck to the graveyard. So then I'm going to special summon out from my deck a copy of a, say, maybe a Squigmata would be really helpful here, or a copy of Beast would be really good here. It kind of depends on what you want. in this particular situation. But the Squimata is probably going to be the safest bet because it'll give us a pop later on, which is just really, really helpful. So let's go ahead and set that onto our side of the field and shuffle up the deck again, which is going to just help us out a lot in the long run of things to be able to get those monsters out. So then we're going to activate the copy of the Solar Recharge to discard from our hand to the graveyard the copy of the Lumina, to be able to draw 2 cards and then mill 2 cards to the graveyard. So we're going to mill a copy of the Chaos Ruler and our second copy of Chaos Dragon Levinair. And once we mill those to the graveyard, we can then use the copy of the Chaos Valkyria in our hand to special summon it to our side of the field by banishing a light or a dark monster from our graveyard. So I'm just going to go ahead and banish one of my Chaos Dragon Levinairs. It doesn't super matter because this card has the ability that you cannot normal summon or special summon this card. You must special summon this card by a card effect, and you banish a light or a dark monster from your graveyard, special summon this card from your hand, which is really helpful just to get you an additional monster on your side of the field, because now at this point we can overlay both of these monsters on our side of the field to go into a copy of Minerva. Minerva is going to help us out a lot because you're going to be able to detach a material from her and then send the top 3 cards off your deck to the graveyard, which is going to be our Dark Creator, our copy of Hat Trigger, and our Shaddoll Fusion, which is just going to get us set up for more plays. Now we've only sent 1 copy of Judgment Dragon to the graveyard, but we've already set up where we have 4 different names from Garroth, our copy of Wolf, Raiden, and a copy of our Lumina in the graveyard. So you have plenty of plays that you have in the graveyard. You have a really good boss monster on the field. And if you really wanted to keep going, you could, because you could use the copy of Shaddoll Fusion, but I prefer to use that during my opponent's turn. So at this point, I'm going to pass. Now when my opponent starts on their turn, I'm going to flip over my copy of my Shaddoll Fusion, fusing these 2 monsters away, which this one will actually revive itself back, and we're going to summon out a copy of Winda to our side of the field, because the Winda is going to prevent our opponent from special summoning more than once, and our effect of our Falco will activate, setting itself, and Squimata will go off as well, sending a copy of Beast from our deck to the graveyard to get us a draw, which is just going to help out a lot to give us additional cards in our hand, because you can't special summon again for the rest of the turn, but you can get a draw, which is really, really good. So now that we're going to get that draw, we're going to draw into a copy of Charge of the Light Brigade, which is just going to help us out enormously next turn. And at this point, our opponent is probably just going to normal summon something and pass if they can't out the copy of Winda. And then we're going to go into our turn and draw for turn. Now, once we draw for turn, we can activate that copy of Charge of the Light Brigade, sending the top 3 cards of our deck to the graveyard, which we do hit a Felice and we hit a Windy, but the copy of Charge of the Light Brigade is cost because of that semicolon. So we're going to go ahead, and now that we've done that, we're going to get to add a Lightsworn monster from deck to hand, which I'm actually going to add from my deck to my hand a copy of Lumina, because I'm already set up for every other play that I could possibly need. So at this point, you have really good plays, so you don't really need to do anything else. You don't need to activate the copy of Minerva. You can flip up your copy of your Falco later, but you have to kind of pick which one you want to revive. If you hit this, you don't want to chain this because you can't special summon but once per turn. So you kind of got to pick which one you want. I'm going to pick the Falco because I want it, or excuse me, this was actually on the last turn during my opponent's turn. But getting these monsters on the field is really good, but you can't flip this face up because you don't have another zone, and you've already special summoned once with the Winda. So you have some really good plays, being able to attack for 3,000, 2,000, and 21, and also having the ability to mill 3 and pop a card is just really good. So that's it for our first test hand. Let's go into the next one. As you guys can see, the deck works very well, and the only thing that you could have done different is if you would have had a copy of the Creator in your hand, or the Chaos Creator, you could have summoned it. And the really cool thing about the combos with the Creator is you can actually just tribute summon it out to your side of the field, because I do play all 3 copies of the Creator, which if you guys want to see the deck profile, you can actually summon this card very easily on your side of the field with the amount of swarm you have, because you can select a monster in the graveyard and send a card from your hand to the graveyard and special summon the selected monster. So basically it's a walking monster born just to help you out with your different plays, and it's a 2300 beat stick, so I could just tribute these monsters and summon this card to my side of the field, and then send out a copy of the Raikou to get me another monster on the field, which is really helpful for a lot of different plays. Let's go ahead and go into the next one and see what we can do for the next one. As you guys can see, the deck is very, very interesting the way it plays, and it's a really fun deck. I really love the way it plays. It's really cool because we went through that many cards in a single duel, which is just really amazing. And it's a really fun deck to be able to play around with. I love the 60 card variant. When That Grass Looks Greener was back at 3, this was a deck that I played a lot when I would actually like play around with it. It didn't have all the new Shaddoll cards, but I still played all the old Shaddoll cards, and I played it in like Infernoid too, but it was really good in this deck because you could get all sorts of cards in the graveyard and then use Beckoning Light to be able to grab whichever Lightsworn monster you wanted. So we're going to go ahead and shuffle it up and see what we can do for the next one. So for the next test hand, we're going to go ahead and draw, which is a copy of Damage Juggler, Chaos Space, which is really good, a copy of our Schism, Lila, and a copy of Judgment Dragon. So we've already got that Judgment Dragon in hand, so we have plenty of ways to actually get it out. So we're going to go ahead and use the copy of Chaos Space to send our copy of our Damage Juggler from our hand to the graveyard to search a dark monster that cannot be normal summoned or set. So I'm going to go ahead and grab from my deck to my hand a copy of the Black Dragon Collapse Serpent. Now the really cool thing about this combo is you can, if you don't have anything on the field and you have more dark monsters in the graveyard, you can actually search your copy of the Dark Creator and special summon it to your side of the field if you have 5 or more dark monsters in the graveyard to get you additional play. So it's a very viable late game play to actually summon that card to your side of the field, which is really helpful. So let's go ahead and shuffle up the deck again and see what we can do for the next play. So at this point, you're going to go into some simpler plays than you did last time, and we're going to go ahead and banish from the graveyard the copy of the Damage Juggler to be able to special summon out your copy of your Black Dragon Collapse Serpent, and then normal summon your copy of Lila, overlaying them on your side of the field to go into a copy of Minerva. Now that we've gotten a name on our field, we can actually detach this from our copy of our Minerva. To be able to get a 1 name in the graveyard, we have 1 on the field, so at this point, we're going to mill the top 3 of our deck. And once we mill those 3, it's going to be 2 more copies of Chaos Space and a Shaddoll Dragon. Not the best mills that we could have gotten. I wish it would have been some Lightsworn monsters, but at that point we're going to pass because it all comes down to the luck of the mill in this deck. And then if this card does get destroyed, it has some really neat effects. That if this card, it has the ability that if this card is destroyed in its owner's possession by an opponent's card effect, then you can also have the ability to send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard, and you can destroy any cards on the field up to the number of Lightsworn monsters sent to the graveyard, which is pretty good to be able to just do that, to be able to basically just pop cards on the field. And it's still really good because if it does get destroyed by battle or by card effect and we mill the top 3, we are going to hit 1 Lightsworn monster, which is going to give us another monster on field, and we're going to get to pop something, which is pretty good. So if we go into the next turn, we're going to go ahead and shuffle this up and act like it didn't get destroyed. We're just going to go ahead and shuffle the deck really quick because we looked at the top 3. So we're going to go ahead and draw for turn, and we're going to get a copy of Chaos Valkyria, and you can use its effect to be able to immediately banish this copy of Dragon, which is fine that we just threw it because you're going to get rid of it anyways. And we're going to go ahead and detach the copy of Collapse Serpent to be able to mill 3 more off the top of the deck, and this time we hit a Garroth, which is going to get us a draw. So once we get that draw, we're going to draw into a copy of Wolf, which is probably one of the worst things that you can draw in the entire deck because you don't want to draw into that copy of Wolf. But it's okay because we do have just 3 names, but we do have a little bit of a setup with the copy of Valkyria and the copy of Minerva that we can swing with these monsters. You could also, if you wanted to, since we milled a copy of Dragon, you could have set the Schism and gone into a window during the next turn by banishing a copy of your Collapse Serpent and your copy of or gone into a Construct even with your copy of your Lila. So let's go ahead and see what we can do for the next one. Sometimes you will get hands like this that are just not the craziest, but that first one was really good. So let's go ahead and see what we can do with the next one, because this deck is really fun to play. I really love it a lot because it's a deck that I've been playing since like the original like Lightsworns came out and the Shaddolls came out. I just kind of mixed them together. Probably about 4 or 5 years I've been playing this particular build, just updating it slowly. But I've played Shaddoll since release and I played Lightsworn since release, and so it just makes sense to kind of mix them together when you're trying to use the Chaos Creator, the Dark Creator, and the original Creator all in a deck because it just works. Like, they're really fun to be able to use. So let's go ahead and see what we can do for the next one. We're going to go ahead and draw into a copy of Solar Recharge, a copy of Raiden, a copy of the Chaos Creator, a copy of Garroth, and our Chaos Dragon Levinair. So if we can get a Light and Dark in the graveyard, we can summon out our copy of the Chaos Creator later on, because this card is really good later on in the turns, because you're going to be able to actually get back your banished cards. So we're going to go ahead and right off the bat, I'm going to discard the copy of Garroth, because Garroth is just basically here for name. So we're going to go ahead and draw 2 and mill 2. So we're actually going to get into the copy of Dark Creator as well, and then we mill 2 off the top of the deck, which is unfortunate because it's 2 spell cards. I wish that would have been reversed, but it's okay. because we're going to normal summon out our copy of Raiden. Raiden is going to use his effect to be able to mill the top 2 cards off the deck, which isn't cost, it just sends. So we're going to go ahead and use the copy of Squamata to be able to actually send an additional monster from our deck to the graveyard, which is our copy of our Beast. Now, it depends on what you want to do. You could send Beast, or you could send a copy of Windy to the graveyard to get you an additional special summon of a monster in face down defense if you did want to. It kind of comes down to what you want, and I'm going to show you guys the pros and cons of both. So if you go ahead and draw a card, you're going to get into a copy of Goblinberg, which isn't going to help you all that much, but you do have light and dark in the graveyard, so you can special summon out a copy of Chaos Dragon Levinair if you need to. It would help out a little bit, but you don't have any way to actually summon out the Dark Creator or the copy of the Chaos Creator. You can summon out Chaos Creator, but it's not going to be super useful. You can summon out Chaos Dragon Levinair if you want to, but again, kind of not going to be super useful. So if we take a step back and we do a different play instead of that, you can actually go in for a copy of Windy and set the copy of your another Shaddoll monster on your side of the field, which is going to be a different one, like a copy of Falco, because the Falco will just immediately special summon itself to your side of the field, and it will get your copy of Windy back to give you just a little bit of defensive plays while you're trying to get through the deck. So we're going to go ahead and shuffle up the deck again, and then we're going to end turn, which is going to mill 2 more cards off the top of the deck with your copy of your Raiden, which is going to send a copy of Windy's Squamata, but unfortunately we activated exactly those 2 effects during this turn, so we can't get the effects off. So let's go ahead and say that our opponent board wipes us, and we are going to go ahead and draw into a copy of the Chaos Creator. So at this point, we're going to start counting our dark monsters. We have 1, 2, 3. We have 3 in the graveyard. So we can actually summon out some really neat stuff instead. So we're going to go ahead and special summon out the copy of the Chaos Dragon Levinair onto our side of the field to kind of fight back against the opponent, and you can actually banish 3 dark monsters to be able to rip a card out of your opponent's hand, which is going to be really good to be able to just shuffle a random card from your opponent's hand into the deck, or you can actually banish all light and actually special summon back something from the graveyard, or you can banish both light and dark to be able to destroy 2 cards on the field. So it depends on kind of what you want. I prefer to banish the 3 darks from my graveyard because I can shuffle a random card back in their hand into the deck, and it gets me a monster out on my side of the field. Or you can banish the other way around and be able to actually summon out your copy of the Chaos Creator. It's totally up to you. You can do it either way and banish the copy of a monster that you want to get back. So these are our banish cards that we're going to banish off the copy of the Chaos Dragon Levinair. And once we do, we're then going to special summon out our copy of the Chaos Creator onto our side of the field by banishing both a light and a dark monster, which we have left in the graveyard. And once we actually summon out the copy of the Chaos Creator, it has a very interesting effect that if you control this face-up card that was special summoned from your hand, you can target up to 3 of your banished monsters with different names, shuffle one of them in, or special summon one of them and place the rest on the bottom of the deck in any order. So we have 3 monsters with different names that are banished, and we're actually going to target these 3 monsters and special summon out our copy of our Raiden, and we're going to put back the copy of the Garroth and the copy of Squamata, which is just going to help us out a little bit more because now the Raiden can actually go off and mill 2 more off the top of the deck, which the Squamata can go off again to be able to send another monster that's a Shaddoll monster from the deck to the graveyard, like a copy of Hedgehog, this time to be able to get us another play. Or you could send a copy of Windy to get us a special summon, which would help out a little bit more to get us another special summon in face down defense position, like a copy of our, actually you could actually send Beast, and Beast would get us a draw at this point, like we talked about before, which would get us another draw and maybe draw us into a level 4 because we haven't normal summoned this turn. So we're going to go ahead and shuffle up the deck and see if we can get any level 4 to go into our copy of our Minerva or our Chaos Dragon in the extra deck. So we're going to draw and we're going to get a Judgment Dragon, which is a little bit unfortunate because we don't have the names in the graveyard. So that's going to be pretty much it for that test hand, but you have a really good setup because at this point you have more light and more dark monsters in the graveyard, and all you have to do is get 1 more light and 1 more dark, or 1 more light or dark in the graveyard to summon out your copy of your Chaos Dragon Levinair. And at the end phase, you're going to send the top 2 off the deck again, so you can actually go in another Chaos Dragon Levinair on your opponent's, or during your next turn, which is going to help out a lot. So let's go ahead and see what we can do for the next one. and see what we can get. Because as you guys can see, the deck works really well. It just kind of depends on the hand that you get, and it has a lot of grind potential, which is what I'm trying to show you guys in these hands. You can go in for all sorts of really amazing plays. Summoning out Judgment Dragon is very, very easy later in the game. Your opening plays are going to be a lot of swarm plays to be able to go into some really amazing monsters later on, and milling as fast as you can into the graveyard. So we're going to draw into a copy of Chaos Space, our copy of Shaddoll Aerial, Shaddoll Fusion, a copy of Wolf, and a copy of Squamata, which immediately I would go ahead and use the copy of the Shaddoll Fusion. And I would probably actually send these two to the graveyard, because it's going to get me more plays. Or you can send the copy of Aerial plus the copy of Wolf to have the Chaos Space to special summon another monster if you want to do it that way. It kind of depends on which way you want to go, because you just need a Shaddoll plus a light monster to go in for this really neat combo. So we're actually going to search out a Schism, because we're going to summon out our copy of Construct. It's very important to summon her up here. And at this point, you're not going to activate the effect of your copy of your Aerial. We're going to just activate the Shaddoll Fusion, send these two to the graveyard, and summon out our copy of Construct, which then will let us send our copy of Schism to the graveyard. And we're going to shuffle up the deck really quick. And then once we send that copy of Schism to the graveyard, you can actually link away the Construct to be able to summon out a copy of Gravity Controller, because it was in the extra monster zone. And then your copy of your Construct will let you grab back your copy of your Schism. At this point, you can go ahead and use the effect of Chaos Space to be able to send the copy of Squamata to the graveyard, which will just get us another monster in our hand that is a light monster that can be special summon or can't be normal summoned or set. So we're actually going to search out a copy of the White Dragon Wyvern Buster just to add it from deck to hand so we can go in for plays later, because we don't have enough monsters in the graveyard to justify searching out a copy of Judgment Dragon. So we're going to go ahead and set the copy of the Schism and pass over to the opponent. And when our opponent goes, you can Schism right away. And if you want to, you can go into a copy of your Pokelone, or you can go into a copy of Construct, again, sending another monster from the deck to the graveyard, which is going to help you out, or another Shaddoll card from the deck to the graveyard overall with your plays, because you can just go ahead and banish out the copy of the Construct and your copy of your Squamata to be able to summon out a copy of Construct from the extra deck, just to give you the additional monster on your side of the field, and potentially get rid of a light monster on your opponent's side of the field. And at this point, you can do some really fun plays, because you can send your copy of your Windy to the graveyard, and once you send your copy of Windy, Windy will use her effect to be able to special summon out a copy of Beast, just to help us dig out the deck a little bit more. So we're going to go ahead and set that copy of Beast on our side of the field, shuffle up the deck, and if our opponent attacks into it, it's going to flip face up. We're going to get to draw 2 cards and then discard a card. So we're going to go ahead and discard the copy of the Shaddoll Fusion, because we don't super need it, but this is going to equal out a copy of the Chaos Ruler, which is really, really good. So once this card goes to the graveyard because they attacked into it, we're going to draw for turn into a copy of Chaos Space, which we're not going to use because we're going to immediately special summon this by banishing out our copy of our Beast. We're normal summon out the copy of the Raiden, mill 2 off the top of the deck, which we're going to actually summon out the copy of the Damage Juggler, which will be at 0 attack points. And we're going to then synchro summon these two to the graveyard and summon out a copy of our Chaos Ruler. Now we're going to use this in backwards. We're actually going to do, this is Chainlink 2 and this is Chainlink 1 to protect this. And we're going to go ahead and search from the deck, which we're actually going to grab a copy of the Black Dragon at this point, which you guys can see, this is why I wanted to go into turn 2 and 3, is to show you guys how much this deck can actually grind. And at this point, you can go ahead and look at the top 5 of your deck and add a light or dark monster from the cards you reveal. So we're going to add a copy of Lumina, because Lumina is going to get us the most plays at this point. And we're going to go ahead and send the rest of these to the graveyard, which the copy of the Archer will actually special summon herself. Now then we're going to special summon out our copy of our Black Dragon Collapse Serpent by banishing the copy of the White Dragon. And at this point, you can go in for a lot of different plays. You can actually just send this and then overlay both of these way down here for a copy of Minerva, and then detach a material off the copy of the Minerva to be able to actually send the top 3 cards of our deck to the graveyard to be able to then go for more plays. And actually, we got all the names I believe we will ever need in the graveyard to go in later on, because we have 2 here, and then we have, actually we only have 3 in the graveyard, but we will when our copy of our Minerva leaves the field. And you can also use this card to be able to pop a card and then mill 3. So you have a lot of different plays, and the copy of Schism is still live, so we can actually go in for more cards, like our copy of Dragon. When you finish your plays, you can go in for a copy with Dragon and a copy of Raiden to be able to go in for a copy of a second construct, which is just going to get us more monsters on our side of the field and be able to just go through into our opponent's life points, which is really helpful because you can send cards to the graveyard as well to get you additional searches, like a copy of Hedgehog, which is just going to go in for even more plays, which is just really, really good for this particular build, to go in for all those different amazing plays. Like, for example, I would probably send a copy of Hedgehog, because Hedgehog's going to get us a search of a Shaddoll monster, which we can then add our copy of Squamata. So if we do draw into a fusion spell, we can go in for a construct, or we can go in for another play, or just normal summon it out to our side of the field with a Goblinberg to go in for additional play. So I think that's going to do it for this one, guys. As you guys can see, the deck works very, very well. I really love the way that it plays. It's much more into the grind game. The first turn's a little bit slow as you play with this deck, but that's just something you take with the territory of what it is. With it being a chaos deck, you're trying to get cards into the graveyard so you can pop off later on, which is what the whole focus of what the deck does anyways is. And it works really well with the creator cards, because basically what you're doing is you're trying to get, for example, if later on in the turns my opponent were to board wipe me, which this was what was not in the graveyard, if my opponent was trying to board wipe me, I would have a bunch of darks in the graveyard. And I were to have a bunch of darks in the graveyard, like all of these in the grave, I could actually special summon out the copy of the Dark Creator, which is why I play it as a 1-of, because in testing, this card has actually saved me a lot, where you'll actually just special summon out the copy of the Dark Creator by having 5 or more monsters that are, by having 5 or more monsters in your graveyard while you control no monsters, because if my opponent board wipes me, I can special summon out this in defense position, and then it lets me also, once per turn, you can remove and play a dark monster from your grave and special summon a dark monster from your graveyard. So I could actually like banish the copy of Squamata and bring back the copy of Beast, just to give me additional monsters to start link climbing into some really amazing plays as well. So really good card. I really love playing the creators in this deck, but we didn't draw them but once really in this particular test hand. But playing such a large deck is something you're going to have to take with the territory, because you're going to have all sorts of different plays that you're going to go into and be milling like crazy. So that's it for this one, guys. I really enjoy the way this deck plays. It's a really fun deck. I hope you guys really enjoy it too. If you guys want to check out the deck profile for this one, it is down in the description down below. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.